Hey guys, it's Steve from String Buzz. Let's break down Neil Young, Harvest Moon. So this whole tune can be broken down into three main sections that are sort of divided up by these little riffs. So the very first riff, and it comes from, I think, there's a song by the Everly Brothers that predates Harvest Moon by about 30 years, I think, called Walk Right Back. And so this is the riff from the Everly Brothers tune. And here's Neil Young's Harvest Moon. So they're really close. I don't know if if Neil Young's was sort of an ode to the Everly Brothers because he was no doubt an Everly Brothers fan, or if it was just a sort of a borrow. But either way, awesome riff based around sort of a major seventh, a D major seventh chord. So first things first, this tune is in drop D. So if you're not familiar with drop D, it's basically just standard tuning where the low E string gets dropped down to a D note. So we have a D, A, D, G, B, and E. This is a very common thing to do in bluegrass because and all kinds of music. But one of the reasons is when you play a D chord, in this case, you're able to play all 6 notes, and it really fills up all the space. And one of the great things about this tune is it is very all-encompassing. You don't need a band to make it sound right. So the very first chord, that intro riff, starts up on the 10th fret, and it's based on where a D major on the 10th fret with that F shape would come from. But what he's playing is on the 10th fret of the B string, you have that A note, and then on the 11th fret of the G string. So all the strings are open. Now this is not a D sus2 as it's been called. It's actually a D add 9 because the third is very much present for you music nerds out there. So we have open D, A, D, F sharp, A, and then the 9th, that E. So then that A note moves up to the B note, which makes it a D6 chord with a 9th on top. So and you're strumming everything for this. Okay, and then the next chord it moves down to is a D major 7th. So these two notes stay the same, but your fingering changes. So your ring finger goes up on that 11th fret on the G string, middle finger on the 10th fret of the B string, and your first finger on the 9th fret of the high E string, which is that major 7th. And again, you strum everything with this. Alright, so that whole riff. Okay, so the beginning we go up to the D6, back to the D add 9, and then to that D major 7th. One thing I'm sort of doing involuntarily is these chords with that open D, they sound beautiful when you sort of do a backstroke rake. So you can really accent the chord that way, almost like a harp. So, at your discretion, of course. Okay, so then we get right to the verse. So the verse starts on an E minor 7th. So for those of you who aren't too familiar with 7ths versus just straight major chords and everything, depending on what the chord is, in this case an E minor 7th, you're taking an E minor chord and you're actually adding the 7th of E minor, which in this case is a D note. So what the 7th does over a minor chord is it takes off some of the hard edge of a minor chord. It's sort of a little light that shines through the darkness that is a minor chord. So in this case, because we're in drop D, the form changes a little bit. So you take an E minor shape like you usually would with the 2nd finger and the 3rd finger, but they actually start on the 2nd fret of the E string, or the drop D string in this case, and the 2nd fret of the A string. And then we have that open 4th string that's ringing, which is our 7th. So this is the verse chord that he's playing. It's not an E minor, it's actually an E minor 7th. So if you played an E minor chord, you can hear how dark that is, and an E minor 7th, it's a little bit brighter. Okay, so coming out of that riff, we have and again with that back rate. Okay, so the pedal steel, or the lap steel, or whatever the instrument is playing that little harmonic part, which you can play. So it's harmonics up on the 12th fret. You have the 12th fret E, 12th fret B, 12th fret G, 12th fret D, again the 7th, and then we go to the 7th fret on the A string. And that's ringing over top of that E minor chord. So again, that's accenting that 7th. That's very much there. There's variations that he'll do live a little bit, but for the most part, he's pretty consistent. So we have that E minor 7th chord. And a lot of people will go back to that riff in the beginning for after he's done singing, but he actually doesn't do that. He has a whole different thing that it's kind of similar, but not quite the same. So what he does is he goes to a D major chord. All right, then he goes D major 7th. So you're barring the top 3 strings on the 2nd fret. So okay, and then we move that whole shape up to the 2nd fret on the D string, the 2nd fret on the G string, and the 2nd fret on the B string to an A chord, where the high E gets muted out. And then we move that shape to a D chord. So it's not quite the same voicing. This is sort of a D over F sharp voicing. So you've got your 3rd finger on the 4th fret of the D string, your 1st finger on the 2nd fret of the G string, and your middle finger on the 3rd fret of B string. So this whole riff sounds like this. Okay, so, and once again, keep that D and that A string ringing. It's one of the best parts of this tune. So this whole riff together, from where the verse starts and the intro, we have. Try not to make the mistakes that I just made. So the next part, we go to a G chord. So it's actually a G6 chord, where you have that E string, which is the 6th that's coming through, and it sort of comes through randomly. But this is the voicing. It's the exact same voicing that you were playing for that E minor 7th up on the 5th fret, and he actually plays it with his pinky and his 3rd finger. Okay, so that 6th chord is very similar to that D6 that we played up here. So the 6th chord has that, kind of takes the edge off again. This is like the 7th. A 6th chord over a D. A lot of songs, 50 style or Beatles style, would sort of end on a 6th chord. So you'd have like a, so that would be a 6/9 chord. So in this case, the G chord, 5th fret on the low 6th string, we have a 5th fret on the A string, and then the rest of the strings are just open. Then we go back to the intro riff. Okay, and this brings us to the very last part, which is the 5 chord. So this is a suspended 5 chord that goes to just a dominant 7th chord. So what it is a A7 sus4. So he plays it open A string, 2nd fret on the D string, open G string, there's our dominant 7th. We have your 3rd finger sits on the 2nd fret on the 2nd string, and then the E is open. But the first part of it, he has his pinky over here on the 3rd string, 3rd fret of the 2nd string. So this is what the chord sounds like. And then it goes, this pinky note goes down to the C sharp. Okay, and he starts it with a back rake. Okay, so after that, we just go right back to that intro riff. Okay, so I'll take it from the G chord, the G6 chord. So we're coming out of that and going into the end here. That's pretty much it. The only variation of it is when he plays the harmonica part at the end. He skips E minor 7th part and he goes right to the G, the 4 chord in this. And then back to that riff, and then he carries that on out. Okay, so it's a pretty straightforward tune. It's an awesome, relaxing song to play, hopefully for you. I hope you guys have enjoyed this. If you did, please hit the like button, subscribe. I'll keep the videos coming. If you have anything you want me to break down, just let me know in the comments. And thank you guys. Thanks again. Hope you have a great week, and I'll see you next time.